Hi everyone, it's Sam and I'm back with another video for Lawn Fawn. Today I am using the new Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set and Backyard Bird Feeder add-on stamp set, Let's Go Nuts, Stitched Sentiment Banner Dies, the Grassy Border Die, Clouds Background Stencils, and the Peekaboo Pop-Up Die Set. As always, to start my card, I start by coloring my images. And I'm using Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. To color the squirrels, I'm using Platinum Brown and Vanilla. And to color these squirrels, since I'm just using two colors, I'm starting by using my darkest shade just in the areas that I want the darkest shade of them. And then I'm pulling it out with a slightly damp water brush, going back over the damp image with the darkest color and then pulling it out with the light color. These two colors are very far apart, but I do like using them together because sometimes gray can come across as cool, and I wanted to add a little bit of warmth and life, I guess, I don't know, to these cute little squirrels. So the vanilla color adds a tiny little bit of warmth and still keeping the, shade mostly of gray on these squirrels. I'm also using light Citron, light Carmine and pale orange for the cheeks. I showed that earlier. And every single squirrel is just colored the same way. The darkest color in my, usually the sides of the squirrels, pulled out with the water brush, and then the dark shade put back on, and then my light shade pulls out the color, and it's a very simple coloring technique, but it works for these cute little squirrels. I just love how each squirrel here is in a different position. Wait till you see them all getting excited for these bird seeds. I can't wait. Next, I'm going to color the grass and the leaves, and I'm using green, May green, and yellow green. These I'm coloring a little bit different because I've colored with my Zig markers every single day for years. I'm pretty attuned to how they go and which ones are extra saturated. And for some reason, my greens, they like to take over. So I'm just using the tiniest little edge of the dark green, a tiny little bit of the medium green. And before I even blend it out, I'm putting the lightest yellow, the lightest yellowy green at the edges so that the color doesn't get tainted by the greens. Sometimes my reds also are very, very quick to bleed, and my greens are the same way. Now I'm going to move on to my big tree branches. I'm using dark brown, natural beige, and beige. However, I do sub out the beige for mustard, which I'll show in a minute, because you can kind of tell or not, my beige is so dry. I need to replace it, but I cannot find another beige one. So I'm trying to use it. It was not working, and I just finally gave up and switched, and now I'm going to use mustard, which, as you may or may not know, is my favorite brown. I use it for browns. I use it for yellows. I use it for oranges. I just love mustard. But you can't even really tell the difference here. So I'm just using the darkest shade, pulling it out with my medium shade, and then pulling the whole thing out with my lightest shade. That's basically the essence of how I'm coloring all my images usually. I'm using the same colors, mustard and light beige, for the bird seed, and then the dark brown for the bigger seeds, both the seed piles and the seeds inside the bird feeder. So I didn't show the markers again because they're the same ones. Next, I'm going to be using, change my mind, not yellow. I'm going to be using my favorite pink combination, which is pink, pale orange, and natural beige. Pale orange is also dry. When you use Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, it is very easy to tell which colors go on smooth and which colors are dry. Next, I'm using, again, mustard yellow and lemon yellow for a little pop of yellow on my bird feeder. And again, darkest color, medium color, lightest color, done. To color inside the bird feeder, I'm using turquoise green, hazy blue, and light blue. And just a tiny bit of the dark pulled out with the medium, and then the light. And then I'm just actually using a little water brush to even get a little bit lighter. And that's my images. Really quick and easy. Next, we're going to start the card. I used the biggest part of the Peekaboo Pop-Up die set and die cut it 2 times. First time, set it aside once it was die cut. Second time, I used my Grassy Borders die to die cut along the bottom, and then I trimmed it so that it was a flat edge, and then used the hillside die that comes with it for the other part of that die, so I could have layers in as the ground. I'm going to start all my ink blending, and I'm using Twisted Citron for the hill and the grass. So I'm starting with Twisted Citron, then I'm moving down to Mowed Lawn with just a tiny little bit of pine needles. Pine needles is pretty dark, so I didn't want to use a heavy hand with it. So I'm just using the Mowed Lawn to kind of blend it all together. Same for the grass, except for it's just a smaller bit of area. Light Twisted Citron at the top, Mowed Lawn at the bottom, a tiny little bit, little whisper, a little kiss of pine needles. Oops, folded the paper, my bad. And that's it. Next, we're going to ink blend the sky. And I'm using Blueprint Sketch, Mermaid Lagoon, and Peacock feathers. You want to make sure that you're ink blending the right edge. So it just took me a minute to figure that out. And I'm just starting, this is the same way that I do at basically anything I color, whether it's ink blending or zigs or Copics. I start with my darkest color, then I go in with my medium color, and then my light color. Now for ink blending, I am a kind of person who I have to have it bold, bright, saturated colors. So I'm ink blending and ink blending. I'm ink blending like a fiend. So much ink blending. I want the saturated color. I want it blended together, but it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to use the clouds background stencils with some white embossing paste to add just a little bit of interest and pop of white for the background. I didn't go all the way down because that part's going to be covered by the grass, and even that little cloud at the bottom I do get rid of, which I'll show you afterwards anyway. So I'm just going to set that aside to dry and move on to, I'm going to heat boss my sentiment in black licorice cardstock in white that was already die cut using the Stitch sentiment border dies. Now the meat of the card. Are we ready? We're going to start by folding the scored edges of our base. For the background of the card, you always want to fold it into a mountain. So here I am just folding my card. I'm just going gently with my bone folder because I don't want to tear off the embossing paste, but making sure it's very scored. Next, for the top layer, you always want it to be a valley. So I'm folding both of these so that they're a little valley shape. And then I'm going to attach them together with some glue. And I'm just lining it up along the bottom. And you can see how it kind of makes a valley, and that makes a mountain, and that's how they're going to go together. Next, we're going to attach the bottom part, the ground, to the card. And I'm just putting a tiny bit of 3/4 inch tape and glue onto the one area of the scored line, that's all it's going to be attached by. Then I'm going to fold it back over, and we're going to work on attaching the actual pop-up mechanism. So I've started, you're going to want to fold along the scored edges towards you. So I'm folding those triangles towards me, and I'm only going to add adhesive to the triangle that does not connect to the long arm. Then I'm going to place it so it's hiding a little bit below the ground, and it just pops up. Next, I'm showing where the ground is going to hit this white part, the arm, and I'm actually going to remove that and replace it with an unacetate arm so that it kind of looks like it's floating there in midair. And next, I'm just attaching the, I'm going to close up the whole card. So I'm just adding the 3/4 inch tape and glue, folding it over like a book, and there you go. Card is there, and my little acetate arm is ready. And we're going to start decorating the card, but basically just to get placement of where I want that arm to be and where I want the little squirrel on there. I'm setting down these to dry. This is what the card's going to look like eventually, but I'm just kind of, nothing's glued down yet except for the tree and the birdhouse. And now I'm just gluing everything down. My little grass tufts, of course, the squirrels. Do you have a favorite squirrel? I don't know. I think I love that one with eating the little seed. He's so cute. I'll put him with the pile of seeds because he's having a good day. Okay. He's got first pick of the seeds and I love it. I'm using the Lawn Fawn Jumbo Glue Pen. Love it. And just adding a little bit of grass here and there. I'm having the squirrel hang off on the left, not putting adhesive on his head. I'm putting the banner on. It's just going to be attached right there on the left tab, but I did put foam tape underneath it, so it has a little bit of dimension. And I have all these extra tree branches, so I'm just kind of playing around, adding it, making it look like it's, you know, a kind of more than one tree. This is my favorite part of card making. So I'm just attaching some tree limbs here and there. And of course I attached the squirrel, and that's the card. I'm dying laughing. This squirrel is jumping up to the bird feeder because if you have a bird feeder in your backyard, then you know these squirrels want nothing more than to eat all those tasty seeds. And this card cracked me up thinking about it, and I hope that it made you laugh, and I hope that it makes you smile. This is squirrel behavior. Iconic. Thanks so much for joining me, and please be sure to check out this card up on the Lawn Fawn blog. Have a great day. Bye!